to know that I was what I was seeking. I knew enough to know that that was true. I had experienced it to be true. But I also knew that I hadn't completely unlocked the mystery of that. And so there was a sense of keep going until you unlock the whole thing. But I knew that I was what I was seeking. So the entire relationship to seeking totally transformed. All the anxiety went away, all the sense of I'm going to drive myself crazy went away. There was, from that point on, there was a sense of, much more a sense of peace. I think a much deeper sense of humility, in the sense that the arrogance that had driven me, not like an arrogance in an obvious sense, but the arrogance of effort itself, of a sort of an egoic striving, just wasn't able to sustain itself anymore.
Very interesting. So there was a paradigm shift that was really significant for you, and maybe would you say it was a kind of a relaxation, because you knew that what you were trying to attain wasn't going anywhere, it wasn't out there, it was inside, and that confirmed a lot of what we read in the spiritual texts, such as the kingdom of heaven is within you, and so you could kind of chill out and you would eventually discover the rest of the story?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really go as far as like, oh, I will be able to discover the rest of the story. I didn't know that. I just kept finding that I couldn't come up with that sort of anxious urge of striving. I was just as interested, and in some sense I was just as driven, but I couldn't put together the sort of psychological angst that usually goes along with that. It's very hard to sort of explain, because the passion to know the truth was actually enhanced more, not less, but it was sort of without emotion.
Yeah, that is a little paradoxical.
Very.
To my mind. Would you say you were happier after this experience?
Definitely.
So maybe
much
sometimes
happier.
Unhappiness drives us to distraction and to obsession, compulsion. So maybe there was some relief. I want to ask if there's, I know obviously you function very well in the world, but I'm wondering if there, after you've had this pivotal experience and then the resulting, the subsequent years that resulted in further development, whether there's still an individual there.
There sure was. Absolutely.
And there is now.
I would say now there's the appearance of an individual, the experience of an individual, but there's not any sense that there actually, that there's actually any limitation. So in other words, it's sort of like if you put perfume on or you put aftershave on, you could say, I smell like alcovelva, but it's more like a perfume than an identity. One's individuality is sort of a perfume that the source is wearing, whereas before it was one's identity. That's where we found ourselves. So that becomes something that was very, very different.
Is it your belief that anyone can become awake in this way, or are there people? Are there certain system requirements, physiological? For example, could people who have organic brain damage or maybe who are psychotic not attain enlightenment or awakening?
Well, I don't think I could say that I would, as a rule, discount anybody. Because as soon as we discount anybody, then we've kind of broken the rule, which the rule seems to be that there aren't any rules. There's only trends, there's only patterns. There doesn't seem to be any rules. So anybody can awaken, but it's not really quite that, it's not quite that simple. Awakening can happen to anybody, because after all, it's what you are. So one can realize that in any state that they might find themselves to be in. They can awaken out of that state.
The reason I ask is because some teachings are based on the belief that the purification of the body and the perfect functioning of the nervous system is a requirement to sustain higher states of consciousness. So we have paths like the Hatha Yoga and people who do purification fasts and all kinds of body cleansing and various meditation techniques that seek to unwind or untwist traumatic experiences, the images of those experiences that are left in the body in the form of stresses or emotional traumas. And even in Western psychology, I think that's sort of a prevalent idea, that if you can somehow, either through primal scream therapy or reliving your experiences that were traumatic and left negative traces, then you can become freer. So, but it sounds as though your experience of awakening was so direct and radical, and that maybe even the teachings of Zen hold that instant enlightenment can occur without, through some kind of a cognitive process, rather through an instantaneous cognitive process, rather than through some arduous house cleaning on the physical level.
And I mean, that was my experience. That experience at 25, I think it was really the beginning. There was others that really culminated the whole process. But awakening itself, real authentic awakening, is a total and very profound paradigm shift to where we're coming from a completely indifferent paradigm. And from that paradigm, what we start to see is that everything that's happening is the product of thought. So even if there's a body in the first place, or a world, or anything, is a product of thought. Not thought necessarily in the sense that most human beings would think of the little thoughts in their brain. That's creating their individual world, in total actually. But thought in the sense of big mind, thought in the sense of the intelligence of Source itself. And from that standpoint of view, this is nothing but thought. Thought made manifest, or I like to say awareness experienced. And so from the point of view, which is the absolute, there's really the whole idea of purifications doesn't really make much sense. It's sort of what I like to call mirror polishing. These strands will even come up in like Zen and other traditions where there's sort of the mirror polishing, which is the purification kind of thing, or trying to wipe the defilement, reflects reality perfectly like a mirror. And I like to call that mirror polishing, Zen, or mirror polishing spirituality. Mirror polishing spirituality has very little to do with awakening, and mirror polishing very rarely leads to awakening, although it can. So we are literally living our concepts. So if someone believes that they need purification, then that becomes their reality. If they don't believe that, then that is not part of their reality. Because reality itself doesn't have a point of view. It's cooperating. It's basically saying, Bob, whatever you want it to be, that's what it is. Because as soon as you want it to be that way, that is fulfilled. So if you like the purification program, great, then that's the reality that you're going to experience. If you don't, then that's not the reality you're going to experience.
Will I experience that reality to the extent that if I were to do the purification program, that I could awaken? Does it work all the way?
If you actually believed it. If you actually believed it. Anything can work. Purification program can work. Direct methods can work. You can fall off a bar stool and awaken. So that doesn't necessarily mean that we all start, bar stool jumping or falling,
but there are schools.
Anyways.
Theoretically, I mean, if I wanted to, let's say you wanted to learn bicycle racing, which you did. Did you have a coach?
Yes.
Okay. So we go to someone who has experience in the field that we're interested in,
Yeah.
and knows how to teach it.
Right.
And so